Shalom, welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Chabad House of Delmar, together with my co-host Mark Ronig, who's covering the capital for over 30 years.
Yeah, and I survived, and I'm here to tell you about it. So I know a lot of these trivial pieces of New York State, and one of the secrets of New York State is the Hudson River Black River Regulating District. And you go, what?
Yeah, I know. That's the first question we're going to have to ask over here.
So Robert Smullen, the executive director, is here to help us learn more about the Black River Regulating District. And welcome to the Jewish View. It's great to have you here.
Thank you, Rabbi. I really appreciate you having me. And Mark, very nice, and the invitation is very well received.
First question is, I know where the Hudson River is, but I never heard of the Black River, so tell our viewers.
That's right.
If they don't know,
That's right.
I don't know, they don't know.
So the regulating district is actually one of the best kept secrets in New York State because it has a very broad mission that covers 11 counties across the North Country. And both in the Hudson River side and then also on the Black River side. And they kind of meet in the middle in Hamilton County. And together they comprise about 6 million acres of watershed in upstate New York, which has a variety of needs for the people. Most of which
Hamilton County. I know Mark knows every
right,
corner,
right.
every inch of New York State, but I know a lot. But
so if you see it, it's actually in the very central part of the Adirondacks. It's one of the largest counties in New York State. It's also one of the most sparsely populated counties. It's very rural, it's very beautiful, and recreation opportunities really abound in Hamilton County.
So the Hudson River, where is the Black River, though? I never even heard of it.
So the Hudson River and the Black River area, if there's an area where there's a divide in the Adirondack Mountains, you can stand in a spot in Hamilton County, and one area will drain to the Hudson, and one area will drain to the Black River side.
Like a V kind of?
Sort of, in that the Hudson River goes south to New York City and drains down into the Atlantic Ocean by New York City. The Black River goes into the Great Lakes and then goes north up the St. Lawrence.
They're going in two different directions.
That's absolutely right. One goes south and one goes to the north, if you will.
That's interesting. And the Hudson, so the Black River just cuts Hamilton County in half almost and just keeps rolling on?
Well, the watershed does, and one goes to the west and one goes to the east.
Oh, that's interesting.
So what happened? Now this is Sacandaga Lake. Has to do. This is part of this watershed.
So the Sacandaga Lake, the Great Sacandaga Lake, formerly known as the Sacandaga Reservoir, was formed in 1929 when the Sacandaga River was dammed up. It's part of the Upper Hudson watershed area, which is comprised of major rivers. The Hudson, whose headquarters are in Newcomb, New York. The Indian River, which is also one of our other reservoirs, at Indian Lake, which is actually a reservoir.
Hamilton County.
In Hamilton County. And then the Great Sacandaga Lake, which the Sacandaga River and the Stony Creek, one of its major tributaries.
And that's Fulton County.
That's in Fulton and Saratoga County. It's actually split right in the middle between the two.
So when you have, how many dams does it take to really hold this water in?
Right.
You know?
So in the Hudson River area, there are two major dams. One is the Conklinville Dam, which is for the Great Sacandaga Lake, and that's located in Hadley, New York. And then there's the Indian Lake Dam, which is in the town of Indian Lake, in Hamilton County. Those are the two major reservoirs in the Hudson River area. On the Black River side, there are two major river systems that have impoundment through the reservoirs. There's the Stillwater Reservoir in the town of Webb, and the Fulton Chain of Lakes, which is the Old Forge and Six Lake reservoirs in both Herkimer and Hamilton
for what?
counties.
For fishing or for fresh water for people? Why did they make these dams?
So the main reason that the dams were formed was for flood control. Back in the day, essentially about 1895, it was realized that New Yorkers could conquer flooding in the springtime by damming up some of the rivers that would chronically flood. Up until that time, the technology, the machinery wasn't available to do so. But after that time, you were able to build these large dams and then regulate the rivers, which is what we do, is to regulate the rivers by impounding water and operating the dams.
Well, I think you're regulating the water flow
That's
as
right.
opposed to the river.
Well, it's
You're regulating the
it's
water
the river's
flow.
water flow, if you will.
Okay.
And we'll get into that about what our second mission area is for the regulating district, which is flow augmentation in the rivers.
Okay, so what happens, God forbid, if the dams break? And
Well, they were
this-
talking about that in California,
Right,
with these
but if-
rivers that
but
they
if-
were
but-
scared of anything
But
for it to break.
these waters are so deep also that I was told that if the dams break, that there's enough water to flood between Fulton County and New York City, that all of the Hudson Valley would be
Really,
underwater.
yeah.
Well, there are certain areas that will be inundated if the dam were to break. But just to kind of put first things first, we take dam safety very seriously. We're both regulated by the Department of Environmental Conservation's Dam Safety Division and the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission's Dam Inspection Program. So we are routinely tested by both the federal and state agencies responsible for dam safety. And as you mentioned, the dam in Oroville, California, it was very much a wake-up call for those folks out there to make sure that their emergency action plans were all up to date and up to snuff, and they actually did some evacuations out there.
And do you have your evacuation
We do those
plans?
every year. They're thoroughly reviewed, and every 5 years, both in the Black River area for the Stillwater Reservoir and in the Hudson River area for the Conklinville Dam, they're exercised with all of the appropriate authorities that you would want to know to be in the loop for such
Do they
an
make
emergency.
electricity there too? Sometimes dams do, like the Hoover Dam, doesn't it?
We do, actually, in both areas. Hydroelectric energy, renewable energy, green energy, is one of the most important benefits that the public derives from the dams in both areas.
Mhm. Now, you know, just for clarification, you say the Stillwater Reservoir, but that is not to be confused with the Saratoga County town of Stillwater,
That's correct.
which is hundreds of miles away from this reservoir.
It is indeed.
Why they called it Stillwater, just for confusion, I don't know, but anyway, that was.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because
I
it's
don't know
hardly
how they both
Stillwater.
got to be named Stillwater, but I imagine that someone happened upon the scene and found the water to be very still, and they said,
Good name.
And had no
"There's very
imagination.
still water there."
And had no,
I don't know.
It's like Verrazano going down the Narrows and pointing and saying, "Is Staten Island?" And they named it Staten Island.
Right.
It's just, anyway.
So you pose a question that, yeah, I'll have to do some research and find out what the answer to that
All
question
right.
is.
So you have a. So anyway, all right. Given the amount of snow, and because the snow that we get here in Albany and the snow that's up there in the mountains are two totally different. I mean, animals. I mean, we can get a half an inch here, and you can get more than half a foot.
That's
up
right.
there. So, what is the current status? Are we okay? Is the water rising too much? Do you have to let some of it go? What's the status now?
So the current status is that we're looking very good for this springtime season. In fact, one of the things I did bring with me was that on April 7th, the district was responsible for preventing flooding in the Hudson River area when the snow melted very quickly and we had a lot of precipitation where the flows of the actual rivers would have been very high if it hadn't been for the Indian Lake and the Sacandaga lakes to be able to catch that. And in fact, almost 2.25 billion cubic feet of water were caught on April 7th alone in the Sacandaga Reservoir, which, if you look at the area from Hadley to Fort Edward and the flood stage that it reached, just from all of the other tributaries, the Hudson, the Scroon River, and all of the areas in the Hudson River that would all flow in there naturally in the springtime, the reservoir being present prevented the water at Fort Edward from going above flood stage at that point.
That's really something.
And did anyone know about this? You just kept it sort of on the queue. I mean, no one asked you,
Right.
so you didn't.
Well,
I mean, you didn't put out a press release.
We
saying,
did put out a
"We
press
saved
release.
Fort Edward."
We did put out a press release, and these things are managed very carefully
Yeah.
at the Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Services
Right.
level. And state agencies were watching very closely at that time for the potential of flooding.
While the average citizen thinks that it's amazing, it's regular, everyday action for you.
It's normal springtime
Yeah.
operations for the
Right.
regulating
Okay.
district. And in fact, only about 10 days ago, because our lake level had come up to 770 feet elevation. We actually opened our dow valves, which are the 3 valves that are at the base of the dam. They're 8 feet wide. When you open them up, the water shoots out in a magnificent plume about 8 feet wide and 60 feet out. And the water is actually let loose from the reservoir. It's somewhere around 5,000 cubic feet per second, which is a tremendous amount of water. And it would, in this case, it would go down the Sacandaga River into the Hudson and then continue its journey out to the sea.
Now, there were years when we really had drought situations. The one time I went up to Osable Chasms.
Right.
I mean, they were dry as a bone. You could see the rocks at the bottom. You couldn't take the boat ride, and it was very disappointing. And it was like the first time in decades that something like that happened. Lucky me, I picked the one day.
Sure.
But can you, when you see that a lot of the streams and small rivers in the Adirondacks are drying up, can these reservoirs do anything to replenish the water there for fishing and all that?
They actually do, and that's really our second mission.
Okay.
Our first mission
Good
is flood
segue.
control. Very good segue. The second mission is flow augmentation in the summertime. So our goal is after the snow melts, the freshet comes, and the water comes out of the watershed, the snow is all gone out of the mountains, is that we let some of it through, and then we catch the late spring rains and bring our reservoirs up to capacity by, say, Memorial Day. And then our goal from there is to impound water to keep the reservoirs full so we can provide flow augmentation for a variety of purposes, one of which is hydroelectric generation in all of the rivers in the Hudson and the Black River area, so they can continue to provide that renewable electricity. But one of the tertiary benefits, if you will, is that for recreational purposes, Indian Lake, Sacandaga Lake, Old Forge, First Lake, the Fulton chain of lakes, first through 6 lakes, stay up so people can recreate on those lakes as well. And downstream from the dams, the whitewater rafters have a great time in the summer.
Now, I go up to a place called 13th Lake, which is so remote they don't name them, they number them.
Sir.
And it's right on the Warren County, Hamilton County border, but the Warren County side.
Right.
Indian Lake's on the Hamilton County side, so it's very close if you need to go into town. North Creek is on the other way, so that's where I camp. And it's just phenomenal, that lake, 13th Lake is just phenomenal. Does that get any of its water from the Hudson River, Black River, or anything?
It's all in the same watershed area. The area you're describing is in the Hudson River area,
okay.
so it would go
That's true.
down to the south.
That's true,
as
because
opposed
I do
to
see the Hudson
north
Lake.
up to the St. Lawrence Seaway.
Yeah, okay.
Let's talk about pollution, because they're always talking about, you like talking about pollution. And then, they're always talking about the Hudson River. Maybe it's getting a little cleaner. Again, I don't keep up with that.
Sure.
I always say, and I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but the solution to pollution is dilution. So the more you have pollution, if you spread it out, it sort of dissipates. So anyway, but go ahead.
Probably in Adirondacks there shouldn't be too much. There's not that much industry up there.
Well, that's that's not in our mission set of monitoring and managing pollution. That's
water
actually
quality
that's
is not-
DEC's role,
Right.
sort of thing. But what we do is provide the flow augmentation that does a variety of things, including improving the ability of wastewater treatment plants to operate in the both watershed areas. Some of them draw water from the river for local towns and municipalities, and then they do their operations to provide the public, clean, safe drinking
the
water.
water quality is good from these rivers?
Oh,
it's
it's
pristine. It's pristine.
Really?
I mean, this water is incredible.
Yeah, so if you look at in the core of the Adirondacks and the watersheds as they go out, because of the Adirondack Park Agency, there's a very light footprint of industrial activity in those areas.
And not just industrial activities, but of any sort of contaminants.
Yes, and they have very strict rules about how they permit building within the park.
See, I used to work with Water Technology magazine, so I never thought cryptosporidium and giardia would be my vocabulary, but I got to know a lot about water quality through that. So,
Sure.
But, you have a lot of questions on your website that people, really could find out a lot about the, of what you do. But, how, like, for example, how did the regulating district evolve? I mean, as a history lesson, can we keep it to a few?
Yeah, it's very short, and it's really actually very sweet in that the regulating district evolved from the need to prevent flooding, and then the need to provide electricity. And then from the cold storage laws in 1915, and then subsequently the creation of the Black River District in 1919 and the Hudson River District in 1922, these public benefit corporations were formed to be able to create these reservoirs. And most of them were done with private funding. And they, over time, in 1959, both of the districts merged together.
Under Rockefeller.
I don't know if it was under Governor Rockefeller's direction, but it was in 1959.
It was in his administration, yeah.
And the purpose of it was to find an economy of scale, although we do keep our accounting books separate for the Black River and the Hudson River.
But you say it was private. Why would anybody, like invest, or whatever, put money into a public waterway?
Well, the idea is that the hydroelectric capacity that you could sell the electricity from it. And we very carefully, through the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, monitor and manage the headwater benefits that are present in both of the watersheds.
Just saying just a minute ago, so the source water, that's what it's called, the proper word. Where does the water originate from? Like the Mississippi, they say, is always from Minnesota somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Right.
The source. Where does the source of these rivers?
They're the Adirondacks.
Right, from the Adirondacks.
That's right. And the various watersheds, the rivers of the Adirondacks, they go to the south, the Hudson, the Mohawk comes to the east. The Black River goes up to the north, and then the St. Regis and the St. Lawrence rivers end up going to the north as well.
Just because of the elevation, they go up north. I'm wondering because most rivers go south, north to south.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and it just really depends on where you're at. Lake Champlain goes to the north.
North also?
Right.
Well, salmon go up north too. They flow. They go
Yeah, but
against.
they're going against the grain.
That's right, and they have the Salmon River up in the Adirondacks.
That's right. That's right.
There's a lot of salmon fish in so maybe
The Pulaski and wonderful places to.
Are you a
to fish.
fisherman?
I love to fish. Yes.
What do you fly fish or what? Do you
Mostly brook trout.
But how do you when you cast? What do you use?
So I'm not a caster. I'm a troller.
Troller.
With a canoe.
Yes.
With a fishing pole and then a lure and then some sort of bait. And I can't tell you what the specific lure I use is because it's a trade secret.
Oh.
But it's very effective. And I was taught by my grandfather and my father how to do so.
So if you tell me you had to kill me, okay. No.
Well, that was my Marine Corps time and long past. So no, I could buy you a cup of coffee instead.
Oh, I see. But what's what bait do you use?
Earthworms.
Earthworms? That's simple, huh?
It's very simple.
Okay.
It's very
So
straightforward.
you say you were in the Marine Corps. Was this connected? Because the Marines, maybe I know they're a fighting organization, but maybe something you went into a side idea, or you were just a infantryman, or?
So I'm from the Adirondacks. I'm
Right.
from Fulton County is my
Very
home.
good.
You went to Gloversville High School.
Yes, I went to Gloversville High School, went off to college and joined the Marine Corps and ended up staying for 24 years
Yeah,
of
really?
service.
Wow, that's a lot of years. But what were you doing there? Infantry, or just as I was saying, maybe it has to do something with your career?
Well, it does in that infantry, and I was an infantryman, and I served for 24 years. I did 3 tours in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
But I was really interested in outdoor work and going places and seeing things. And it was a very interesting career. I ended up going to 70 countries all around the world,
Yeah, wow.
over many overseas deployments. I lived for a year in Japan, visited really all over the place, including to Israel.
Really?
And had a very interesting, very rewarding career. So when I looked to come home after my military service, I looked for a role as a public executive. And it just happened that this role turned up, which is based in both Albany and Mayfield and in Watertown. So my role is to help regulate the rivers in the North Country, which is a wonderful opportunity for someone like me.
So you went to Eisenhower School, National Defense University for your master's degree
I did.
in national resource strategy. I was thinking natural resources, but no, national resource
That's right.
strategy. So what did you learn out of, from that major, from that?
So really, it's the big picture of managing resources, which is very important both at the federal level in the Department of Defense,
Yeah.
But also at the state level, here in Albany.
Yeah, right.
There's a lot of important resources that need to be managed very effectively. And you take the Marine Corps values of honor, courage, and commitment,
Yeah.
and then you apply them to your work at home amongst the people that you serve. So it's very elegant.
And you must value loyalty very highly.
I do.
I mean, that's something that seems very, very important to you.
To certainly to family, to my hometown.
Well, even the coworkers.
To my
even
state.
When you have staff, even your staff, I mean, have loyalty. That's something that
Absolutely.
really would irk you if you had anyone who's disloyal.
Well, it really comes down to leadership and providing good, honest leadership to the people of the organization
Yeah.
which you serve. There's a very good way of looking at it, from being a servant leader to being able to take care of your people. And they, in turn, enabled to do so, are able to accomplish the mission.
Mm-hmm.
And in this case, it's very straightforward mission that's very well done by the people that are in the regulating district.
How many staff do you have?
There's a total of 5 on our senior staff, and then we have our field organization.
So the total of what your budget would cover.
There's about, budget-wise, it's a little,
How many people would your budget cover? How many employees?
29.
29?
Yes.
Okay. And your budget from, like, if I looked it up in the state budget, if I could ever find it, how many millions?
So we get our budget from 4 different areas, really, which makes it very confusing to find a specific number. But we're in the neighborhood of about $5 million per year.
Oh, wow. That's not much.
It's enough. We're very sensitive.
Half of that goes for your salary, right? Yeah.
Well, yeah, not so much.
We didn't say that, did we? No.
But what it really counts is that a lot of our money that we have in the district goes for operating expenses for the dams.
Right.
And that's the critical expenditure that we have. And in order to do so, we have to have people to do that.
All right. So let me in the city of Albany, they are losing $1 million gallons of water a day, and they don't know where it's going or how to account for its
From
missing.
the sewer system, I mean from the water system?
Water system, yeah. They are losing it. It's not evaporating. They just
Right.
don't know where it's going. And it's not pipes breaking. They're scratching their heads. They just have no idea. And also in the Catskills, the water that goes down to New York City,
Right.
they got a lot of breaks in their pipes, and all of a sudden, in Orange County, a man-made lake just popped up one day, and people thought that it was the government who
Right.
created a lake. That it wasn't. It was from a pipe breaking and created a lake in Orange County. Do you lose water? Do you know whether you have issues like that with,
So not in our reservoirs. It's really neat in that our gauging system through the U.S. Geological Survey, we gauge the water coming in, the inflow, and then we're very careful to measure the water going out, the outflow. And you want to make sure that they of course match up, because we work very closely with the organizations, private companies that run the hydroelectric facilities downstream from our dams, the flow augmentation piece. So we monitor it and we manage it very carefully to make sure our engineering staff is very much on top of this.
So it's good, it's even, you're not losing any water?
Right. Well, it all goes, down the Hudson. So in that
but
sense,
but I mean, are you losing? Is there water that's not accounted for?
our water is accounted for in the district.
Every drop is accounted for.
I would
Okay.
say every drop.
Oh, come on, you're good. Good to the last drop.
Some got evaporated.
That's right. And we do. For instance, when we had the drought last year, in August, DEC declared a drought warning for New York State. And it's a very sensitive and very serious issue because of lake levels. And the watershed itself can dry out. So even though you may get a hard rain, the watershed, the greenery in the Adirondacks, could simply absorb all of that water and not add any inflow. So you could have rain in the mountains and not have a tremendous amount of inflow into the reservoirs.
I just remember it's a number of years ago, it's not upstate, but It was just that even around the Capital District, it was raining, and they said, well, there's a drought warning. So everybody was scratching their heads. How can you have rain and have a drought?
Right.
Well, what are you talking about? If it rains, there's water. I mean, I guess you're kind of explaining it. It just like was such a heavy rain or
Right.
was absorbed into the ground. So
That's right.
still, you can't water your lawn because
Well, I got to tell you, you are our first guest who's a graduate of the Citadel. And explain what the Citadel is and how important it is to the security of our country.
Sure. The Citadel is the Military College of South Carolina. It's a small state college that I attended from 1986 to 1990.
Yep.
And then when I graduated, I was commissioned into the Marine Corps after officer candidate school.
you go to, what is it, part of the Navy then? Because I know Annapolis is the Navy.
Right.
But Citadel, you can go to the Army. I mean, what's,
So many of the states have state military colleges that also produce graduates that go through Reserve Officer Training Course, the ROTC, and then are commissioned into the military. So just like any of the service academies, West Point, Annapolis, or the Air Force Academy, the graduates from there, many of them are commissioned and then they serve in the various branches of the military.
And from there, you went on to Georgetown University.
I did. Well, I went to Georgetown when I was working in Washington, D.C.
Oh, 7 years after you graduated from the Citadel.
Right,
Oh, okay.
right. So I was very
Took a
interested
little
in
break.
international relations and,
Right.
in this case, national security
they
studies.
let you off time, or I mean, you do it like a night?
I did it at night and on
courses?
weekends. Yeah, I was always very interested in education, so I did it at night and on weekends on my own time, on my own dime.
Oh, yeah?
They wouldn't pay for it, the Marine Corps?
No.
Oh, that's interesting.
I know, you'd think to better yourself, to better an officer.
The Marine Corps is a parsimonious organization that gets a lot of bang for the buck. So, yeah, they are very stingy with their budgets and their resources.
So a lot of the graduates from the Marine Corps are very regimented people. They like to have things start on time, end on time. Are you that regimented? Is this out of your system, or are you into this?
So actually, it was never in my system, in that the Marine Corps changed almost at the time when I was commissioned. We went from a very much of a command-directed style to what are called mission-type orders. So you're given a mission, you're given resources, you're given the parameters in which to operate, and then you are given the freedom to carry out the mission as you see fit as an officer.
Very good. I just know in Israel, that's what they say, why are there good military? And they just, exactly what you're saying. I talk to Israelis and they say exactly that because,
Right.
someone back there in Washington, D.C. doesn't know what's happening in Afghanistan as much as, hey, you're an officer, you're intelligent, you see the situation.
That's
and
right.
everything is hands-on, the best experience. So they just let their officers, you see you're there.
That's right.
Figure it out, you're trained, do what you have to do.
There's very little anyone in the Pentagon can do when you're in Kunar province in the Hindu Kush to help you out in the middle of the night
Right.
when something bad is about to happen.
Mm-hmm. So are there any stories or anything that you'd like us to know about that we didn't know enough to ask or bring up? Or
Well, really the important thing is that I'm from upstate New York.
Right.
I love upstate New York.
Mm-hmm.
I did my time of serving the country in the Marine Corps, and my first thought was to be able to come back to New York and continue to try to give back to New York State.
And you started this job at the Hudson River in about a year ago.
Just about a year ago.
Okay.
My first,
did
almost a year when I left service was spent building a house on my family farm in Fulton County. So I'm refurnishing my roots back in the North Country.
But there was a job opening and you applied to the governor's office, or what was this?
So I applied on Indeed.com.
Oh, really?
On a job website. I saw the opportunity open up, then began investigating it, and then turned my full attention to it when I realized it was a very unique, very well-suited opportunity.
Well, that's
for
how the
someone like me.
governor's office hires, through Indeed.com.
That's
Look at
it.
that.
Maybe you can get a job too, Marco.
Well, it's not
Marco,
that. It's just, interesting. I mean, I think that's a funny way to hire because you'd think they would have a file cabinets of resumes, you know, and they'd be able to pick from people who've already applied.
Right,
It
right.
must be, that does make it, you know, a unique job that maybe they didn't have
But
anyone to
bottom
fill
line,
it.
you're doing an excellent job, however you're hired, it's not the issue, but you're
Well,
doing
it is,
excellent.
because of what used to be under the Pataki administration, a very political job.
Really?
It used to be, yeah, you had to be well-connected in the Republican Party in order to get that position in the Hudson River, Black River Regulating District.
Yeah, so I am a public executive in that flood control and flow augmentation and
Right.
recreation are all
No, it's
you know,
good to-
bipartisan activities.
Well,
that
it's
are,
good to know that this administration is not looking at your political registration or enrollment, you know, that they're taking you based on your
I'm very appreciative of the
qualifications.
board that appointed me
Yeah.
and the governor for accepting
Accepting
that
you.
recommendation
Yeah.
and that appointment.
Very nice, very
All
good.
right, keep,
Okay.
you're doing great work, keeping, you know, everybody, the water, no one thinks about it, but there's a big job behind it.
The water is the source of life.
There you go.
That's right. When people think, you know, you see the rivers in upstate New York, you know that someone is regulating them for the public
And I will
benefit.
think of you from now on.
That's right. That's right.
All right, thank you, keep on doing with the good work that you're doing with
Continued success.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.